This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and today I'm going to talk about why moderation is a fucking lie, basically. So, growing up, and this is something I suppose I've heard a lot in the fitness industry over the years, it's like, oh, I believe in everything in moderation. It's like, okay, well, my mum believed in everything in moderation, and she smelled like a chimney and drank like a fish when I was younger, so I'm not really sure how that pieced together, but that was the lesson passed on to me. Everything in moderation. I kind of look at my mum when I was a bit older, I'm like, well, that doesn't make so much sense anymore, mum. Like, don't look at everyone else's moderation, because find someone that doesn't believe in moderation. Well, there are people that like that. They believe in obsession, and they're usually quite successful at the one thing they're successful at. It's quite interesting. I'll get into that a little bit later on, but everyone believes in moderation. Like, it's just like everyone's concept of moderation and definition of moderation is different. So it's just crap, because it's not a measurement. And so what happens is that people use it as a justification of why they eat what they eat or whatever the case might be. And it's like, no, because moderation today is different to when our grandma's grandma told them about moderation. Because sugar used to be called white gold, because it was a fucking form of currency, because it was so rare. Even salt was so rare, because that's the whole idea behind the quote, worth your weight in salt, is because it's like, well, you'd pay that person that much, because salt was rare. But it's not rare today. It's grown in abundance, and it's in all of our foods, and they're easily accessed. The quote, everything in moderation, did not take into consideration eats. It wasn't there then. And so what we need to look at doing is actually understand either A, make a really wholesome concept of moderation for ourselves and stick with it. Sweet, cool, make it work, whatever. But otherwise, it's a matter of actually going, well, maybe it's not about moderation. And I don't think it is. I think if you've got a dream and your goal and you want to get somewhere, then maybe moderation isn't what you should be looking at. Maybe it is obsession. Maybe you should start becoming obsessed with the thing you want to do. Now, maybe this is unhealthy. I don't know. That's for you to decide. But the thing about it, though, is that moderation can keep you very mediocre. And so it just really comes down to depend on what you want to do. Now, if you want to become... there's a lot of guys... I know someone like C.T. Fletcher. His actual... what's it called? Documentary is called My Magnificent Obsession. And I get it. Those guys they're on another playing field. And I don't think everybody needs to be like, if you don't know C.T. Fletcher, look him up, Google him, YouTube him. He's a crazy motherfucker. Really nice guy though. Really nice guy. And so the whole idea here is looking at it and going, maybe a little bit of obsession isn't so bad. As long as it's not about someone else and you've got a shrine in your cupboard or some weird shit like that. Like, as long as it's not that, that's a bit strange, I think. But hey, as long as it's not hurting anyone, whatever. But the obsession in relation to the thing that you want to do with your life. And if you can align obsession with your life's purpose, if you're lucky enough that you've spent enough time going, you know what at the core of me, what matters the most? Literally. And I'm not talking like, people come into the fitness industry and I'm like, why are you in the fitness industry? Like, I want to help people. I'm like, go be a nurse. Give someone $20. Like, that's just, it's like saying, I don't like poverty. It's like, fuck, no one likes poverty. Everyone wants to help people. Like, it's too general of a term. It's like, no, seriously. What is it? I'll tell you what mine is. End unnecessary suffering. And guess what? We've got to start with that. With ourselves, right? I have to look at my unnecessary suffering that I put myself through, and I'm like, let's see how I can end that. And then maybe I can share some of those concepts, and maybe the people listening can help us end their unnecessary suffering. I'm not doing it. You are. And so this is the whole idea. It's like, well, that's why I do what I do. And if I can align my purpose with my obsession, then all of a sudden we start to see some momentum towards things that actually matter to our soul. Now, this is the same idea of going, match your actions to your ambitions. And we see a lot of people nowadays not doing that. And I've been guilty of that. And I know in the future I might look back at some of the things that I do today and be like, well, I said that I wanted that, but actually I just wanted that because I wanted X person's approval. We're continually moving through unresolved rubbish, right, from whenever. Like, that's something that you don't just go, oh, I'm done. Yeah, I've fixed all that now and everything is clear and I'm basically just Jesus. Like, that doesn't really occur. I've never met someone who was not born Jesus but became it. So, unless change their name. But even then, I haven't met them. Never been to Mexico. So what I'm getting at with this is look at your measurement for moderation and then look at your relationship with obsession. Now, the beauty of all of this stuff is that we get to decide what all these words mean to us. And sometimes I think that we underrate that. And this is what I said plenty of times before about failure. It's like, well, I decided that failure was no longer, the meaning was failure, or was like, I missed the target. The failure to me was giving up. And so all of a sudden it was like, well, I didn't fail. I can't fail unless I give up. And if it's something that means the fucking world to me, then I'm not going to give up. I can't fail at this. And my mindset just shifted. It just changed. And so I was like, right, well, what else can I do with that? Well, moderation. It's like, that's kind of mediocre to me. It's like, okay, well, if that's mediocre, then do you be mediocre? I'm like, no. Then look at moderation. It's like, well, what the fuck even is moderation? I've sworn a bit in this podcast. I apologize. Disclaimer. Keep going. And so I was like, I don't really want that. It's like obsession. It's like, well, obsession seems a bit drastic. And then I'm like, upset about your purpose and contributing and building memories. And I'm like, yeah, no, I can take that. I'll take that, thank you. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, what do I need to do in order to do that? And it allowed me to sort of peel away all the things that actually started to matter to me. And it showed me, though, this was the thing that mattered the most. It showed me what didn't matter to me. Hey, like, we spend 80% of our time, I know I'm just throwing a random number there, I didn't measure everyone's time, but 80% approximately ish of our time on shit that just doesn't matter. Now, I'm not just saying the things that we do here and now, right? Because I'll ask somebody, they go, I do this with a lot of personal trainers, I'll talk to them about, they'll have a client that they don't like working with. And I'm like, okay, how much does that person pay? They're like $75 for the hour. I'm like, okay. Right. And that hour is never like clipped in with other hours. It's always for some reason like a standalone hour that's random throughout the day, so there's nothing either side, or they have to drive. Let's just say hypothetically they have to drive. They've got to drive 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back. Okay. So we have this person that pays them $75. That's a pretty cheap hour, just to clarify. But it doesn't pay them for the $20 either side of that hour. Right? Now, not only that, if the person's like, this person's a real drag to train, they don't really want to improve, right? It's like, okay, well, $75, let's take off 30 for tax, hypothetically. That's variables in that, but let's just go with it. So $7.50, $15, $22.50 off 75. Now you're left with $50. $40 of driving. So how much fuel is that? Let's take off 5 just to be nice. Maybe you're in a gas car. So all of a sudden, we've pulled off easily $27 off 75. And then your time in the sides, and it's not an hour, it's an hour and a half. Now, how long a week do you spend thinking about that person that's annoying you? Another 2 hours throughout the whole week. Holy shit. You are getting paid how much? That's 3.5 hours to get paid and pocket $45, give or take. Okay, you're getting paid $15 an hour. It's like, fuck that. And while you're doing that, you can't do anything else. So what's the opportunity cost? And we start to break down these costs and we go, man, we're actually really bad at spending our time at doing things we don't want to do. And so you're not losing $75 by canceling that client. What you're doing is you're gaining 3.5 hours of your life to maximize on shit that you want to do. How much is that worth to you? Is it worth $15 an hour? Because that's what the person's paying you. Have a think about it. It's worth getting obsessed. Just make sure it's about something worth getting obsessed about. Team, I'm out. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. I apologize. I think I've had a couple of audio issues in the last couple of podcasts. It kind of jumps a little bit. I'm not sure what happened. I think there was a glitch in the computer. So hopefully this one came out clear. If it hasn't, get in touch. I'd like to hear it. I'm going to listen back to it as it is anyway to make sure that I don't sound too much like a rat bag. Otherwise, there's only a couple of days left for my book. It would mean the world to me if you could jump on and pre-order my book, The Human Movement. It's in the comments, or what is it called? The notes, that's it, of this podcast. Otherwise, it's on my social medias as well. That's Dave Nixon on Facebook, or Diamond Dave Nixon as a personal profile. You'll also find me on YouTube under the same thing. You'll see the links in this notes of this podcast. Find me on Instagram at DDNix. Otherwise, team, if you found this podcast interesting, would mean the world to me if you could pass it on to someone else that you think would also find it interesting. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza, kick today in the dick, slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
Is happiness to be everything at once, be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.